saying it all season. The Scudetto race is tight, and it continues to be tight with 5 games left here in the Serie A. The Calcio guys, Adriano. I'm Nicholas. No Gianni this week, but we have a guy who kind of looks like Gianni. Peter Curto from IFTV. Peter, how's it going?
I'm good. I get the barber from Montreal. Come over.
There you go.
I want that hairstyle.
There you go.
You and Gianni go to the same barber. Obviously, we'll talk a lot of Inter, tied at 71 in the Scudetto race with Napoli. But obviously, big news around the world this week. Papa Francesco, rest in peace, passed away yesterday. Also affected the Calcio world because there was 4 games that were supposed to be played yesterday, and that they're getting moved to tomorrow right before the derby in the Coppa Italia. Guys, I know we even spoke about this last week, Adri, but although that there was games on Easter, it was a bit controversial. I know it was a bit controversial to even move the games yesterday. Peter, you're on, the business side of soccer. Tell me, when something like this goes down, what kind of happens behind the scenes? Is this kind of like a shock for the players? Do you think there was already maybe like discussion and plan in the league, like, okay, when this happens, when a Pope dies, we move the games? And maybe just give me your opinion if you were shocked to hear that this happened.
Sure.
Well, the game's being moved.
Yeah. I don't think it's something that they talk about because it doesn't happen very often. So there's no protocol. So even in the decision, the Italian Federation took a little bit longer to announce that the games were going to be canceled or rather postponed. So I don't think the players knew. And, obviously the teams, they traveled, and even it's weird to see that they postponed the games to Wednesday rather than maybe Tuesday, which, you had the away teams already there. Why not just play the next day? Obviously, Italy is home of Vatican City. So there's a closer connection, I would say, compared to the rest of the countries. We know La Liga played, England, they played. So, a lot of people were maybe upset or just left scratching their head as far as why Italy decided to postpone the games. But I think it's just more so on tradition and, the fact that the Pope lives in Italy. There's, he's no matter what religion you are, he's a major spiritual figure in this country. So in this world. So, they made the decision, and, obviously it's a tight schedule from now until the end of the season. But, I think all things considered, Wednesday was possible, and they're going to make it work. Does it falsify the championship? I don't really think so. Maybe the teams, because there was some complaints that, all the teams that played the Saturday, let's say, didn't have that extra day of rest, and how come this team does? But, it's just part of the league, especially Italian banter. There's always gonna be a room for comments and questions and complaints. So I think it was okay, and the decision was made, and listen, they had this slot available this Wednesday, and they made it work.
Yeah, I think it's something that we've seen in the past, and I think ultimately we'll probably see again in the future of these types of postponement of games when. The stuff like this brings me back to even, the devastating news of Astori, right? The Davide Astori time, all those years ago, and, they shut down everything, and what a shock that was. And, for just it being a player and now, it being an even more influential person in the world, like the Pope, it's obviously a big deal. And listen, I agree with Peter. I don't have a problem with it. I think it would have been maybe a bit more logical the day after, like you said, being today, Tuesday, but listen, they have to cram these games in. There's only 5 games left in the season, plus Coppa Italia, whatever happens there. So, I'm not. Again, I think we're all not too really shocked that. I'm just glad they didn't make this like a big federal deal and it didn't get postponed to like even beyond this week, or it's going to be played at the end of the season, and the season's already tight the way it is, 71 points apiece at the top. That's the last thing Italy and the Serie A needs in terms of negativity and like controversy and all that stuff. So I'm glad they were, quick on the ball and they were able to, postpone the games, 2 days later, it's again not the end of the world, but it is what it is. But the big talking point, like Nick opened the show with. Oh, sorry, Nick, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just gonna say when I first heard the news that the games were going to be postponed, my first thought was, "Damn, we're gonna have to wait till May." But like you said, at the end of the Wednesday, and then even the games coming this Saturday. This Saturday, with the funeral and everything, I'm not surprised those are being postponed, just because there's also, a logistical implication. There's going to be so much security, people traveling to Rome. I'm not surprised for Saturday either, and I know it impacts Inter, but they get moved to the next day, and that seems a bit more logical at the end of the day.
No, this also gives me flashback of even, Peter knows this well enough. When Milan won the Scudetto, there was always that game in hand. There was that game in hand that like bled till like the end of the season, and like we were waiting for that game to be played. And then, it just, again, listen, we're not always fans of how Serie A operates in certain cases, but for once they got something, somewhat right. So we'll tip our hats off for that. But Peter, 71 points apiece. It's getting tight. It's the Serie A that we love, because it's been like 2 years in a row that it's been blowouts for the Scudetto winner. Is this kind of where you saw, because we haven't spoken to you in a while on the podcast, is it something that you expected to see in this Serie A season? And is this kind of where you saw Inter seeing their fighting on all fronts and still being tied on top of the Serie A table?
I mean, I probably would have thought in the beginning, of the year that there will be different, teams up there with Inter. Sure. Right? I would have thought Juventus, with the money they spent, Thiago Motta coming in, that they probably would have competed for the Scudetto. Milan, obviously, just because of the players that they had, and you're like, okay, let's see if Pavlovic is decent and as a center back, and maybe they can muster something. You have Leao, you have Pulisic, you have players that are really, really top. And I did not expect Napoli to be where they are now. For Inter, I do think that they were obviously Scudetto contenders, being that they won the year prior, and that they had to do something more. So meaning go deeper in Champions League. I think last year, losing to Atletico Madrid, we kind of had a sour taste in our mouth, because I think that game probably could have been prepared better, the return leg, and we just got caught, and maybe we were too secure, meaning that we were too defensive in our approach, and we're gonna just play our game and be able to sneak through, right? And at times I've seen it this year as well, where our defense, I think, I don't have the stats, but we let in a lot of goals past that 80th minute mark, and we're the oldest team in Serie A, and I think that plays a factor. We've played a lot of games. At the end of the season, we'll be playing around 20 games more than Napoli. So you add that with the fact that you have injuries and suspensions and other things that happen during the season, and I think you have to tip your hat at it to Inzaghi and to the team for being there, number one, with the chance to win the Scudetto, and all in their hands, because if they win out, they win. And the same discussion is with for Napoli. I'm a big fan of Conte. Might not love his antics at times, but the guy's a proven winner.
Yeah,
he'll change your team. He'll motivate your team, and he gets the best out of his players. And Adriano, I've said it to Antonio a bunch of times. If Milan went after Conte, I bet you they would have been in this position.
Absolutely,
because the players that Milan have, with the right leader, it's a scary team.
No, they wouldn't be moping around for sure. I think the attitude will be different. You see it with Conte. With Conte ran teams, you see it. Does they get old and does it get stale come year 2, 3, 4? Yeah, maybe. But will you come out of it with winning something? More times than not, you see that. Unless you're Tottenham, then that's a different story. But but yeah, no, Conte for sure. I do agree. But even going just back to this weekend, the 1-0 both ways actually. Napoli winning 1-0, Inter losing 1-0 at the death. I mean, is it about time this guy gets a call up to the Italian national team or Solini? Like, it's crazy. How many more times does he have to knock on the camera? He's been knocking for too many weeks now.
Yeah.
So obviously that hurts, Peter. Even though we're rival fans of Inter, that hurts if you're a fan at the death, losing like that. Again, I wasn't able to watch the match, but if you want to just dissect what you got out of the match, and I guess you can't really say much. It was a crazy goal by Orsolini. You have to eat it. But just your thoughts on the match against Bologna and how crucial were these points lost?
Yeah, I think it's a match where it kind of tells the tale of the season for Inter, where if they're missing some of their starters, big players, the guy on the bench doesn't pick up where they left off. So I mean, whenever Thuram is out or Lautaro's out, the guy off the bench is not up to par. It's been like that for Taremi. It's been like that with Correa. Correa, it's been 3 years. So, I mean, nothing really surprising there. But, I don't know why Arnautovic wasn't maybe starting. I'm not sure. Maybe had a knock or something. But, he came in at the end of the game. So I'm thinking, he at least had 45 minutes to go in and do something. And he's been pretty productive, towards the end of the season, and has stepped in. But, it's, when Çalhanoğlu was out, whoever was coming in, Asllani wasn't up to his par. So that's how I saw this game, where it's just like, hey, when we don't have the full 11, we're going to struggle. And ultimately, when a good team is top, when they're able to play poorly and still muster up a win. And some reason this Inter team, even when they play poorly, they're not getting those breaks that they had last year. And it's just been that type of season. And Bologna, you have to give credit to them. I mean, Absolutely. They've had a fantastic run this 2025 year. It's almost a shame that the Champions League started in the beginning of the season, because it's a completely different team. And I think they probably, this current run, they probably make the top 8, Champions League, because they're just it's a terror to play against them. They have energy for 90 minutes. And unlike Inter, the subs that come in, they're that much better. They give that much more to the game. So it's just like, you can tell that the team is bought in to Italiano style, high tempo, high pressing, and just continuously going after scoring a goal. And that even means throwing the long ball in the 93rd minute, trying to go after, get a goal. And that's the beauty of the game. This, it's a subjective sport, and everyone could have the certain style. We see it with Conte, we see it with Inzaghi, and we see it with Italiano. I would also put him up there with some of the top coaches in the league, especially this year. And it hurts, right, as an Inter fan, because you say, okay, if you tie that game, you're 1 point up, destiny is really still in your control. But I mean, I don't make too much of it. I don't make too much of it, because sure, a point can make a whole difference, but it's still going to be hard to keep that 1 point distance from Napoli, just because Napoli, they're going to be a thorn in Inter's side, and they're not going anywhere. So just one slip up on Inter's part, if they tie or lose, they already lost that 1 point advantage. So what I mean by all this is, listen, the calendar looks like it favors Napoli, but we saw Monza they already have 1 foot in Serie B. You never know what could happen. Yep. One slip up, one wrong game, and it creates a lot of issues for either both Inter and Napoli. So it's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be an interesting run to the end. And as you guys mentioned before, it's like old vintage Serie A again, vintage Serie A where everything's going to be decided on the last day. And God forbid we get a final, Inter versus Napoli final game for the Scudetto.
Yeah. You can't even script that better.
Oh man, that's crazy. It's crazy.
But is that, sorry, Nick, I know you were going to ask something, but is it true that if they end up on same points, I think I had heard it's a playoff? Is that what it is?
Correct. So
Okay.
They just implemented it because usually it was head to head and then goal differential.
Yeah.
So this year they're going to have an actual final. So,
playoff if they end up tied on points.
Correct.
Okay.
And Inter will host because they have the
goal differential.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that was correct. Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
I forgot about that rule because it's relatively new. It's like a couple of seasons. Obviously, we haven't seen it ever. So I don't know. We'd have to look at the history books if there's ever been a point.
I think I saw a clip. I don't know how accurate it was. 1964.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And it was Inter too, no?
Inter Bologna. I saw from the clip I saw. I don't remember who posted it or where it came from, but I just saw a clip not too long ago.
Correct. Inter Bologna ended up winning, but Inter that year won the Champions League. So it could be history. That history repeats itself.
Oh, okay.
I'll sign for the Champions League.
There you go.
One thing. So a couple weeks ago, we had Rafa, the Napoli fan, on. One thing we spoke about was during that time. So I think it was 3 weeks in a row. Napoli played after Inter, and for I think 2 of those 3 weeks, it was either the day after or even 2 days after. So Napoli went into these games. They knew what they needed. This time it was the opposite. Napoli played on Saturday. Inter played on Sunday. Napoli, somewhat late winner, 72nd minute by McTominay. Do you think, kind of having that reverse kind of impacted Inter in a way that, they went into this Bologna game with the pressure on their shoulders a bit?
Sure, you feel more of the pressure because ultimately the players are human, right? So you can say whatever you want. There's always that thing in the back of your head knowing that, Napoli are tied on points with you, and that you want to have a result. You don't want to get a result. The difference is, I think, especially with this Inter team, they have a lot of players that have won in the past, so they know what it takes to win.
True.
But when you face a Bologna in this form, there's nothing that you can really do to say, hey, let's kill them 3-0, because it's just Bologna is not a team that's going to lay down. And even if you score the one goal before, they're going to come after you. So I think, yes, if you do play after your opponent or whatever, Napoli or Inter, if one plays before the other, there is a level of pressure that comes on for playing, after the other team.
Absolutely. So, I think also that's just, I don't know. People try to, I think, play that. How can I say this? Play it out too much. I think sometimes, the psychological war of oh, I'm playing before, oh, I'm playing after. At the end of the day, you have to get it done on the pitch. So whatever it is, it's going to be the schedule is the schedule. You already know. You should already know that going into the game that you need to win, that you need to pick up the 3 points, and how important it is. But listen, it definitely gives, I guess, some sort of psychological in the back of your mind, something's still there. Oh yeah, we're playing after or whatever. But yeah. Obviously this season, Peter, it's been a crazy season because, like you said, Inter has the potential of, I don't know how many more games. You said about 20. I don't know if that's the actual number, but that's a lot more football, a lot more culture that's been played for Inter, and they're still rolling on all 3 fronts. And again, as rival fans, we hate to say that a treble is still possible, just being Milan and a Juventus fan here. But is that besides being a contender for the Scudetto, did you see also on the horizon of another treble? Because Inter's the only team that has done it in Italian football, and it's still possible. So it starts tomorrow, I guess. also in the second leg of the Coppa Italia. I guess you can tie in with your thoughts on that match tomorrow, because it was a crazy 1-1 in the first leg. But just want to get your thoughts on all that for Inter.
No. Listen, I mean, I had the podcast with IFTV, and obviously your question is very sincere. But I had Antonio.
That's the same thing.
But he was trying to bait me. So very different approach.
I'll take the different approach.
It's a very different approach. But what I would say is I'm gonna have the same answer for you, which is, it's like any other team that's ready to win, that wants to win a Champions League. Real Madrid, PSG, whoever it is, Man City, you can spend, $1 billion on a roster, and you can never say, the expectation is to win a Champions League. It's an objective, but it's not an expectation. So when it comes to the treble, it's the same thing, man. Just winning a Champions League is hard enough. Now trying to do it on 3 fronts is a whole nother level. And that's why I think, a lot of people, laugh at Inter, the treble. It's a hard feat. There's few teams that have done it. And it just takes a lot of energy. You need a little bit of luck, because even Inter in 2010, I remember Inter lost to Roma. Roma were in first place, like 5 games or whatever it is at this stage before the end of the year. So, they needed a little bit of luck, and they just needed to continue on their path to be able to win it all. And, sometimes you need a little something special. Now we have, like you said, the first one is the Coppa Italia, which is, it's an important semifinal game. More importantly, also because it's against your rival versus Milan, who this year, forever, shit Milan has been.
It's about time.
They've been able to beat Inter every game. So it's like, it just goes along with this year where Inter have been poor with the head-to-head, and they haven't been able to put the dagger in these teams. So this game is going to mean a lot, I think, for the real aspirations of the club, and the players being conscious of what they're able to do. And it starts from tomorrow, and you have to win because it's versus Milan, let alone that it's the Coppa Italia semifinal. You have to win because it's Milan, and you can't have Milan on its way to potentially 2 trophies at your expense, because the Supercoppa, Inter blew that game, and you can't do the same again.
I think this lines up perfectly with one of the questions we got on social media from our friend Dieter. Hi, SerieA Amici. Is it a failed season if Inter don't win the Scudetto or Champions League, and why? Thanks for answering my questions in advance. No problem, Dieter. So he asked Scudetto or Champions League. But I'm gonna put a twist on it. I'm gonna say Scudetto and Champions League. So if they walk away from this season, no Scudetto, no Champions League, let's not look at Coppa Italia. Is that a failed season for you, Peter?
So to his question, I would say like Scudetto or Champions League, I would say yes. When you say Scudetto and Champions League, you mean the both of them? Like if we don't,
if they don't, maybe that's what he meant.
Okay,
but I'm just making it clear they don't win either.
No, I mean, listen, Inter has to win.
Something,
one or the other. Like if they're not winning the Champions League, you have to win the Scudetto, because I mean, you could get to the Champions League final, but it doesn't mean anything, right? You either did it or you didn't. So, especially with the team, especially the position of where we've been all year, like very, very close to the top, if not, at the top for a while, we need to be able to secure one of those. And it's just part of being, a top team in the league. And the players that we have, although I can complain and say, hey, Correa didn't come in, we still have a good roster off the bench. So you need to be able to win something. And let's not forget also there's also the Club World Cup that's going to come into in June. And even Inzaghi has made it a point to say, hey, we're in 4 competitions. So I like that mentality, but at the same time, you have to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Kind of want to switch gears and actually just ask you quickly about the Club World Cup. I mean, obviously you're in the States. I don't know. First of all, are you going to any of the games?
I'm gonna try. I do have a baby on the way, so that might put a
hinder some things.
yeah. But I will obviously be following. It's a great event or tournament here in the United States. It's good, obviously, preparation for a World Cup next year. So
Yep.
that's going to be very exciting. And I mean, it's a new format, new competition. Obviously there's some money on the line for the team, so that's why I think they're going to take it seriously. And we'll see how it plays out. It could be something new, and it looks like it definitely will be. I think it'll be more important than what the current FIFA Club World Cup looked like. Or the past, well, at this point, past Club World Cup, where nobody was really paying attention. It was during the season, like it didn't impact any of our lives. And the trophy was kind of like the Coppa Italia, where it's like, okay, yes, we have it, won, or no one gives a crap.
Yeah.
So hopefully it changes.
Well, you pretty much answered what I was going to ask, because I was going to ask how serious do you think players and teams are going to take it? Do you think Inter, and not only Inter but all other teams, are going to bring their full roster?
I do think they'll bring the full roster. I mean, I know that the players obviously aren't super excited about it.
They want a break.
Yeah, because I mean, these guys, they're working literally 11 months out of the year nonstop. Bastoni has come out recently saying, "Hey, we never see our families, we never see our friends, we never, we're always traveling, always sleeping in hotels and getting to the game, and there's added pressure." But these guys, they're not machines. So everyone could say, "Oh, well, listen, the regular person works 360 days a year, and we're not complaining." Yeah. But I would also mention that, like they're not playing, the physical amount of work, the workload for these guys, it's just unreal. And they need that time to be able to just take a break. And every other sport, they have it. Look at the NFL, look at the baseball, look at hockey. Like they need this rest, or else their body's is gonna give in, And I think the teams are going to make it a point to bring the full roster. I think the players ultimately will play it, especially that it's the first year. But more importantly, because there's a monetary reason, and if there was no money, I don't think the teams would really participate the right way.
Good point about the workload, though. We've talked about Adri
many times.
Past few years. Feels like it's crazy how much they need to play, and it's not like what we do. It's hard to compare, right? Me, I finish work at 4:30. I go sit on the couch. I go on my phone. When I need to take a day off, I could take a day off. It's very different. It's a very different job lifestyle. You can't compare it to a regular person's job.
No, I think since COVID, like we've been saying this, and I think even you guys too. I know Peter have definitely mentioned on your end too, but I think since COVID, like the COVID season and like all that, crap, like it's been nonstop. Plus, with World Cups that change from the summer to the winter, and then other tournaments, and it's just, it's nonstop. Like there's nothing else to say. Like it's just been crazy, and it seems like the season's gonna finish, right? Like in 5 match days, but you're gonna blink and it's gonna be Serie A season all over again, like before you know it. So it's really not a lot, especially in a tournament year, and then next year's another tournament year. So it's nonstop culture. For the fans, it's great, but for the players, I think it's a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, even for the fans, but it's like you
true.
You don't even get a chance to miss.
Yeah,
because you're watching nonstop, and
you're right.
Obviously the season then starts up in August, but there's preseason for these players, so it's like literally that they maybe have a week off, 2 weeks off, and then they're back into it. So it's just a lot to ask for these guys, and even for the fans. I think we want to see the highest level of quality.
True.
We need the players to be refreshed. We need the players to be healthy. We want the best players to be playing, and not all these injuries and just not getting the best out of the players.
I think this, I don't even know like what a solution would be for all this. I don't know if Peter, if you ever thought of it. I know you see a bit of the behind the scenes. You're with players and stuff like that. But is there anything that can be done, or this sport has gone in such a business mind frame and way of going that there's just no turning back?
I mean, listen, it definitely they'll need to change up something. I think, business wise, that's what a lot of these leagues are looking at when it comes to the revenue that's coming in. Yeah. The players also, they want to get paid. And this is also ways to help receive higher payments, higher salaries. But, one suggestion or things that could potentially happen is to maybe lower the Serie A to 18 teams from 20. So bring it back to the old format. Yeah. And, we see leagues that have that. Germany has 18 teams, Bundesliga. And so they have a solid, 2 weeks off during the winter. And they also don't have to play back to back to back nonstop. So it gives just that little bit extra rest. You're looking at 4 games less. It makes a difference, I think, in the grand scheme of things. So that could be something that they look where, hey, you're still able to play in all these different competitions. But, on the league side, you have 18 teams. Maybe you make it more interesting also where now that level of quality, you don't have those easy games potentially. True. Even though, in these past years, I think we've seen there's no such thing as easy games anymore. Yeah. The smaller teams are playing, and they're gonna have implement their style, and they're gonna try to win or catch the team slip up. But that could be one suggestion.